Rockstar has abandoned a lot of franchises, basically everything except GTA and Red Dead Redemption. Let's talk a complete look into this. Starting with Midnight Racing. Midnight Club's story begins in the year 2000, when Rockstar Games and Angel Studios, later renamed Rockstar San Diego, decided to bring underground street racing culture to gaming. The first game was actually inspired by the real-life Japanese street racing scene, specifically the Midnight Club of Tokyo, an infamous group of street racers who'd tear through the highways at insane speeds. The series really hit its stride with Midnight Club 2 in 2003, which introduced motorcycles and a more arcade-style approach to racing that set it apart from more simulation-focused games. But it was Midnight Club 3 DUB Edition that truly cemented the franchise's place in racing game history. Released in 2005, it perfectly captured the mid-2000s tuner culture with its deep customization system, licensed cars, and banging soundtrack. Midnight Club, Los Angeles, released in 2008, was arguably the series' peak. The game was absolutely gorgeous for its time, featuring a stunning recreation of LA and some of the most intense street racing action ever seen. The customization was deeper than ever, the physics were tight, and the open world felt alive. It seemed like Midnight Club was unstoppable. But here's where things get complicated. While Los Angeles was a critical success, the gaming landscape was rapidly changing. The development costs for premium racing games were skyrocketing, and franchises like Forza and Need for Speed had massive budgets and marketing power behind them. Forza particularly was becoming a juggernaut with both its Motorsport and Horizon series offering different flavors of racing that appealed to a wide audience. Another major factor was Rockstar's own success with Grand Theft Auto. GTA 4 came out the same year as Midnight Club, LA, and was an absolute monster hit. The resources and attention needed to develop GTA games kept growing, and Rockstar had to make some tough choices about where to focus their efforts. GTA Online's massive success years later would further cement this direction. There's also the sad reality that Rockstar San Diego, the studio behind Midnight Club, faced some serious challenges. Many key members of the development team left over the years, and the studio's focus shifted to supporting other Rockstar projects. Making a modern racing game requires specialized expertise, and rebuilding that team would have been a massive undertaking. The nail in the coffin might have been the changing nature of racing games themselves. The genre evolved towards either hardcore simulators like Forza Motorsport or massive open-world festivals like Forza Horizon. Midnight Club's niche of pure street racing was becoming harder to justify as a big-budget endeavor, especially when competing with established franchises that had years of technical development behind them. That said, Midnight Club's influence lives on. You can see its DNA in many modern racing games: the sense of speed, the urban environments, the focus on street culture. Games like Need for Speed still carry the torch for urban street racing, though they've had their own ups and downs. Would Midnight Club survive in today's gaming landscape? It's hard to say. Modern game development costs are astronomical, and the racing genre is more competitive than ever. But for those of us who spent countless hours customizing our rides and burning rubber through virtual cities, Midnight Club will always hold a special place in our hearts. Sometimes it's better to go out on top than fade away. And that's exactly what this legendary series did. Now, what happened to handheld games by Rockstar? Seriously, morning is coming anymore. Back in the day, Rockstar was surprisingly quick to embrace portable gaming. They were dropping games like Grand Theft Auto Advance on Game Boy Advance and Chinatown Wars on Nintendo DS, when many other major publishers were still skeptical about handheld platforms. Chinatown Wars especially was a technical marvel, somehow cramming a full GTA experience into a DS cartridge. The PSP also got some love with Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, which were incredibly ambitious for handheld games at the time. When smartphones exploded onto the scene, Rockstar was again ahead of the curve. They ported GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas to mobile devices when most big publishers were still pushing simple puzzle games. These ports were genuinely impressive for their time, showing that smartphones could handle console-quality experiences. But despite their early success, Rockstar gradually pulled back from these platforms. Several factors likely contributed to this shift. First, the mobile gaming market underwent a dramatic transformation. Free-to-play games with microtransactions became the dominant business model. Companies like Supercell and King were making billions from games that cost way less to develop than Rockstar's premium titles. The market for premium-priced mobile games basically collapsed, except for a few notable exceptions. Then there's the development cost factor. Modern Rockstar games are monumentally complex and expensive to make. Even porting them to mobile or Switch would require significant resources and compromises. Just look at GTA 5. It's a massive game that pushes even modern consoles to their limits. Scaling that down while maintaining Rockstar's quality standards would be a huge challenge. The success of GTA Online also changed everything for Rockstar. Why divert resources to making mobile games when your main platform is generating billions in revenue? The math simply doesn't make sense anymore. The return on investment for a mobile game would pale in comparison to what they make from GTA Online's microtransactions. There's also the question of creative satisfaction. Rockstar has built their reputation on pushing technological boundaries and delivering cutting-edge experiences. The technical limitations of mobile devices, and even the Switch, would force them to make significant compromises. That's probably not very appealing to a studio that prides itself on setting new standards for gaming. The GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition's troubled launch on Switch probably didn't help either. While the Switch is certainly capable of running older GTA games, the port's technical issues showed how challenging it can be to adapt these games for less powerful hardware. It might have reinforced Rockstar's preference to focus on platforms where they can deliver the exact experience they envision. The modern gaming landscape has also become much more segmented. Mobile gamers and console gamers often want very different experiences. The kind of deep, complex experiences Rockstar specializes in just don't align well with how most people engage with mobile games, in short bursts while commuting or waiting in line. Looking ahead, it's unlikely we'll see Rockstar return to mobile or handheld development in a significant way. They've found their sweet spot with massive, technically ambitious console and PC games that generate huge returns through both initial sales and ongoing online revenue. While there might be occasional ports like the Definitive Edition, Rockstar's days of creating bespoke experiences for portable platforms are probably behind them. It's kind of ironic. Rockstar was one of the first major publishers to take mobile and handheld gaming seriously, showing what these platforms could really do. But, as these markets evolved in different directions, Rockstar chose to focus on what they do best, creating ambitious, boundary-pushing games for powerful hardware. Now, this one makes me bad personally, Max Payne. The story actually begins before Rockstar was even involved. Max Payne was originally created by Remedy Entertainment, and the first game took them nearly 5 years to develop. Released in 2001, it revolutionized action gaming with bullet-time mechanics and its gritty noir storytelling. Take-Two Interactive, Rockstar's parent company, saw the potential and bought the IP rights in 2002 for $10 million. A steal in retrospect. Rockstar really hit their stride with Max Payne 2: The Fall of Max Payne. They published it while Remedy still handled development, and the result was magical. The game was a masterpiece of storytelling and refined gameplay. However, here's where things get interesting. Despite critical acclaim, Max Payne 2 was considered a commercial disappointment. The game just didn't sell as well as expected, which would later influence Rockstar's decisions about the franchise. Then came the long wait. 8 years passed before Max Payne 3 arrived in 2012. This time, Rockstar developed it internally, and you could really see their influence. The game was gorgeous, featuring cutting-edge animation technology and sophisticated storytelling. They took Max out of his usual New York setting and placed him in São Paulo, Brazil. While some fans missed the noir atmosphere of the earlier games, the gameplay was absolutely stellar. But here's where the complications start. Max Payne 3 reportedly cost around $105 million to develop and market, while it sold over 4 million copies, which sounds impressive. The high development costs meant the profit margins weren't as hefty as Rockstar's other titles. Remember, this was around the time GTA 5 was in development, and we all know how that turned out. It became the most profitable entertainment product ever. The timing of Max Payne 3's release also played a role in its fate. By 2012, the gaming landscape had shifted dramatically towards open-world experiences and games-as-service models. Linear, story-driven shooters were becoming increasingly risky from a business perspective. Just look at what happened to other classic single-player shooter franchises from that era. Many struggled to adapt to changing market demands. There's also the question of creative direction. Max Payne's story had reached a natural conclusion. The third game gave Max a sense of closure, and pushing for another sequel might have felt forced. Rockstar has always been protective of their creative reputation, and they might have felt they'd said everything they needed to say with Max's character. The massive success of GTA Online probably sealed Max's fate. Why invest $100+ million in a single-player shooter when you could put those resources towards content that generates recurring revenue? It's the same reason we haven't seen many other Rockstar franchises lately. GTA Online's success has reshaped their business model. But what about the future? Well, there might be a glimmer of hope. Remedy Entertainment recently announced they'd reached an agreement with Rockstar to remake Max Payne 1 and 2. This is particularly exciting because it brings the series full circle, with its original creators back at the helm. The remakes are being developed with Remedy's Northlight engine, the same technology behind Control and Alan Wake 2. These remakes could be crucial for Max Payne's future. If they perform well, they might convince Rockstar that there's still a viable market for this kind of game. The success of recent single-player titles like God of War and Spider-Man has shown that there's definitely still an appetite for high-quality, story-driven experiences. However, we should probably keep our expectations realistic. Even if the remakes are successful, a new Max Payne game would need to justify its existence both creatively and financially. The gaming industry has changed dramatically since Max first slow-mo dove onto our screens, and any new entry would need to adapt while maintaining what made the series special. For now, Max Payne remains in limbo. Not quite dead, but not quite alive either. Back in 2006, Rockstar decided to take a massive risk. Instead of making another crime epic, they created something totally different. A game about surviving high school. Bully, or Canis Canem Edit as it was known in Europe, was both controversial and groundbreaking. It took Rockstar's signature satirical style, but applied it to the familiar setting of a prep school, complete with cliques, classes, and teenage drama. The development of Bully was actually pretty turbulent. Even before release, parent groups and politicians were up in arms about the game, assuming it would promote bullying. The irony? The main character, Jimmy Hopkins, actually fights against bullies and tries to bring peace to the school. Classic moral panic situation. Despite the controversy, or maybe because of it, Bully became a cult hit, praised for its clever writing, unique setting, and warm heart beneath its rebellious exterior. Now, here's where things get interesting. Work on a sequel actually did begin around 2008. Rockstar New England, formerly Mad Dog Software, was reportedly developing Bully 2. The project supposedly had some ambitious ideas: a bigger open world, more complex character interactions, and improved gameplay mechanics. Some reports suggest they'd even completed a playable version with several hours of content. But why did Rockstar pull the plug? Well, it's complicated. First, there's the timing. The late 2000s saw a massive shift in gaming. Open-world games were getting bigger and more expensive to make. GTA 4 had just released, setting new standards for what players expected from a Rockstar title. The resources needed to bring Bully up to these new standards would have been enormous. Then there's the social context. The late 2000s and early 2010s saw increasing awareness about bullying, particularly cyberbullying. Schools were implementing zero-tolerance policies, and there was heightened sensitivity around depicting teenage violence in media. While Bully was actually pretty tame and had a positive message, the marketing challenges would have been significant. Imagine trying to promote a game called Bully in today's social climate. There's also the question of creative direction. The original Bully worked partly because it was such a product of its time. The mid-2000s were peak teen movie era, with films like Mean Girls and shows like The OC influencing pop culture. By the 2010s, teen culture had changed dramatically. Social media, smartphones, and changing social attitudes would have required a complete reimagining of the bully concept. Some former Rockstar developers have suggested that the company's evolving image played a role too. As Rockstar matured as a company, they started focusing on fewer, bigger titles. The experimental spirit that led to games like Bully, Manhunt, and The Warriors gave way to a more focused approach centered on their major franchises. But here's the thing. Bully's influence can still be seen today. Games like Persona 5 and Yandere Simulator have shown there's definitely an appetite for school-based gaming experiences. The blend of open-world gameplay with social simulation that Bully pioneered has influenced countless games since. There's also been persistent rumors and leaks about Bully 2 over the years. Patent renewals, insider reports, and occasional hints have kept fans hoping for a revival. But with each passing year, and with Rockstar's focus seemingly locked on GTA 4 and GTA Online, a true sequel seems increasingly unlikely. What's particularly bittersweet is that modern gaming technology could make an amazing Bully sequel. Imagine a modern school simulation with complex social systems, detailed character interactions, and a living, breathing campus. The potential is enormous, but sometimes potential isn't enough in the modern gaming industry. Looking back, Bully represents a different era of Rockstar Games, one where they were willing to take bigger creative risks with smaller budgets. While the franchise might be dormant, its legacy lives on as a reminder of what video games can be when developers think outside the box. Sometimes, the games that don't get sequels end up being the most special, preserved perfectly in their moment in time. Now, Manhunt franchise has a story of its own. So, picture this. It's 2003. And Rockstar decides to push the boundaries even further than usual. They release Manhunt, a stealth horror game that puts you in the shoes of death row inmate James Earl Cash, forced to participate in a sick snuff film operation. The game was deliberately provocative, designed to spark conversation about media violence and voyeurism. Then comes Manhunt 2 in 2007, and things get really interesting. The game was initially given an adults-only rating in the US, which is basically a death sentence for any mainstream game. Rockstar had to tone it down just to get it released. Even then, it was banned in several countries. The controversy was intense, with politicians and media outlets using it as an example of everything wrong with video games. But here's the thing. Beyond the controversy, both Manhunt games were actually really sophisticated in their commentary on violence and entertainment. They were making points about how society consumes violence as entertainment, which is pretty meta when you think about it. The games weren't just shock value, they had something meaningful to say. So why did Rockstar abandon the series? Well, the gaming landscape changed dramatically. The mid-2000s were kind of the Wild West for gaming. Publishers were pushing boundaries to see what they could get away with. But as games became more mainstream, there was increased scrutiny on content. The industry started focusing more on self-regulation to avoid government intervention. The business side probably played a huge role too. Manhunt was expensive to make and controversial to market. Meanwhile, GTA was making billions with a more marketable form of mature content. From a pure business perspective, it's hard to justify making a game that might get banned in major markets when you could focus on safer bets. Modern gaming culture has also evolved. While there's definitely still a place for mature content, the conversation around violence in games has become more nuanced. Players and developers are more interested in exploring complex themes through gameplay rather than shock value. Even the most violent modern games tend to frame their content differently. The rise of streaming and content creation has made ultra-violent games more problematic from a business perspective too. Many streamers and content creators wouldn't be able to show Manhunt-level content without risking demonetization or bans. That's a huge marketing channel basically closed off. Social media has changed things as well. Back in 2003, controversy might take weeks to build. Now a single screenshot can spark global outrage in hours. The risk of backlash is much higher, and companies have to be more careful about their content decisions. Then there's the question of what a modern Manhunt would even look like. The original games were products of their time, reflecting early 2000s concerns about reality TV and surveillance. Those themes are still relevant, but they'd need a completely different approach today. The original's grainy aesthetic and snuff film premise might feel dated in an era of social media and live streaming. The financial risks would be massive too. Modern game development costs are astronomical, and making a game as controversial as Manhunt would be an enormous gamble. Retail chains might refuse to stock it, digital platforms might not host it, and marketing would be a nightmare. Looking back, Manhunt represents a specific moment in gaming history, when developers were testing the limits of what games could depict. While the series might be done, its influence can still be seen in games that try to say something meaningful about violence and media consumption. Maybe the true legacy of Manhunt isn't the controversy, but how it showed that games could tackle really dark, complex themes. Even if we never get another Manhunt game, it helped pave the way for more mature storytelling in gaming. Sometimes a series needs to end for its impact to be truly appreciated. But hey, who knows? Maybe someday, when the time is right and society's ready for it, we might see a reimagined version of Manhunt that speaks to modern concerns about violence and media. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let me know in the comments which of these series you want to see make a return, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.